we're still awaiting the LEC season finals. So we've got 2 active leagues in League of Legends this week for Competitive Edge here on the Esportsbet.io YouTube channel. As usual, guys, be sure to subscribe. Face Check's also on this channel, and there's also Competitive Edge for CSGO if you're interested in that. So we have been doing these weekly, and now we're going to be into the LCS and LCK playoffs. There are going to be a lot of LCK matches. There are 6 best-of-5s this week. One of them has already happened with Hanwha defeating DRX 3-0. But there's going to be a lot of LCK matches, so be sure to check it out on Twitter if you guys want to follow along. We might be putting some additional wagers up and predictions up for those matches. And speaking of following along on Twitter, Thorin, there's a limited time promotion here on Esportsbet where you can get free ESC, Esports Coin. It's what DJT used to be named. But if you guys want to claim up to 20,000 free ESC, all you have to do is, first off, join the Esports Bet Discord, which you can find below. Secondly, follow on Instagram and Twitter for 5,000 each. So 10,000 for the Discord, 5,000 each for Instagram and Twitter. Once you do all of those things, you can just message the mods and mod mail on Discord or customer support on the website itself, and they will credit your account to 20,000 ESC. And ESC can be played with for free. They can also be changed into other cryptocurrencies. So it's a great time. You can play along, maybe make some money while you're at it. And thanks a lot to Esportsbet for doing that. It's a good way to keep up with things. Yeah, we don't have a lot of games this week. We only actually have 4 that are active on the website right now because until T1 versus Dplus happens, which will be later tonight if you're watching this VOD. So get on that, by the way. It is our match of the week, which means you get an additional 10% profits on that match, up to $100 USDT on your first bet. We don't know because basically KT has to select their opponent, and we have 6 remaining teams within the LCS playoff bracket. And so we've got those 3 matches, but we kind of have to wait for things to unfold. Any surprises for you this week, Thorin? We got boomed by NRG again.
I mean, the problem with that one, like I say, is like the real issue with their team is if people forget, this core has been together quite a while, but actually they always used to lose the 3-2 series like this. They always used to like be good and then actually underperform. So they're doing the opposite, like even historical trend. Like no one could predict any of these wins. Like fair play to NRG, there's all legit wins from them. But I also think the other teams have also, I will say, I think both opponents played way worse than expected.
Well, I mean, it was crazy just the throws that were happening from Golden Guardians when they would be up regularly, you know, thousands of gold. And even in the game that they won, they really struggled to close out the match. And game 1 was quite embarrassing, I would say, for Golden Guardians. It was very, very weird series that had...
So who had Parlor Fox like smurfing on beating up? No one had that on their bingo card. I'm calling it bullshit on that immediately, mate. No way.
Gory griefing.
Also, did you see that thing that people found where like supposedly Parlor Fox's actual name is Parlor Fox?
Yeah, it is.
I'm out. I'm just out there.
I think it's a Spanish name. I think it's a Spanish name.
It just sounds so much like some sort of fake gamer name. It sounds like a character in Super Smash Brothers or something.
It does. That's great. I'm into it. All right, let's review our matches from last week. It did not go well for the second week in a row. Unfortunately, we dropped another of our series of the week, thanks to NRG. So we were down about 700. This is from the week before, if you guys are looking at this right now. TSM, of course, had to lose to Dignitas in the most embarrassing fashion possible because naturally that would happen.
TSM had to fuck us on the way out the door. The arse never seems to play the answer. They had to actually just fuck us, Monty. You know, of course, why not?
Why not?
We better the bloody win.
Especially with a massive advantage. I was watching game 5, being really hopeful that we were going to pull this one out. And then I don't know why Insanity didn't build Ludens on Xerath. And so I had to watch that.
Fan, I can at least take solace in the fact that he individually has outperformed the entire TSM org for the last like 6 years or something, mate. Like, it's mental, isn't it?
So that was not great. And then we put a flyer on Live Sandbox because we didn't know what the form was going to be coming back for Faker. You know, that was just because the odds were really good. We only put 200 on that. Hanwha, we got correct over Dplus. They actually smashed Dplus. It was not even close. So that turned out to be really good because they were slight underdogs. And of course, the two matches we put the favorites for 500 on were Golden Guardians and TSM, both of which ended up being upsets. Sometimes you get unlucky.
I mean, spoiler, if you've noticed, the message of this show this year is LCS is the hardest league in the world
so
to bet.
Hard.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Well, especially because it's best of ones, right?
No, but even though in the best of fives, it's still all the upsets all day long. Like, what are we supposed to do?
NRG is going to Worlds, baby.
Isn't that mental?
It's actually shocking. It's actually shocking. So we've got some unusual matches this week that we are going to be selecting, especially because the odds are weird. So T1 coming in. Now, we like to say like the cutoff's 1.4. Unfortunately, Thor, when I did the Monty and Wolf show, I'm afraid I affected the odds because I said the T1 versus it actually says Dignitas there. That would be a complete slaughter. No, it is not. It's DK. Let me fix that real quick for you guys. So it is versus Dplus Kia. Now, on the Monty and Wolf show, T1's odds were over 1.5 at the time I recorded that. So there was going to be great value there. But I think because of the match of the week and because, thousands and thousands of people watch that show, it becomes difficult to keep those odds. And I think a lot of people were also just thinking to themselves, well, this does look pretty promising considering that Showmaker has been a little kind of off form recently. We haven't seen very good tank games or meta jungler games out of Canyon. He's looked best when he's on kind of fringe meta picks, and when he has to play Sejuani or Maokai, it looks pretty grim.
Also, as we pointed out on some of the insight, these two players are both available at the end of the year. So even though normally you'd be like, oh no, you compete for your job, they might actually just be checked out at this point because the team's just been kind of whatever, hasn't it?
Yeah, and also, maybe they don't want to go to Worlds. I don't think going to Worlds or not is going to affect Canyon and Showmaker's contract value in a free agency market.
Oh, mate, I get the vibe from top Korean players that it's like what I was told by the G2 players in 2021. You know, the one where they didn't make it with Reckless. Dude, they just told me straight up, we're glad we didn't make it. It wouldn't have gone well. Like, we would have just gone to Worlds and then been made to look fools and just come home. So, like, look, you can only say that if you're the G2 super team that's won everything or top Korea. Like, essentially, if you're these players like Showmaker and Canyon, bro, you're still salty you didn't win, like, that second Worlds. You're not, like, just wanting to go out in groups, are you? Like, essentially, that's why I say they might be checked out. Like, I get the vibe they know this team didn't work. And like I say, if the contracts are coming up, they're probably already thinking what happens next year. Where do we stay together? Do I leave? Do we leave? There's so many angles. I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty in this team. It's a good time to pick against them.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, the odds aren't quite what they were a couple of days ago. But if you keep an eye on them, they might shift just a little bit more if people really believe in Dplus. But
you get the 10% extra through.
You do get the 10% extra. You do get the 10% extra. So that is an encouraging sign.
Bumps it up a little bit. It bumps it
up. Yeah, I think you got to take T1 here. Yeah, T1. Okay, so maybe they lost a game to Live Sandbox. Maybe they weren't playing as strong opponents. But I think it was just a massive morale booster for T1 to be back together as a team. And Dplus always, look shaky. Them coming off that loss to Hanwha in such a kind of one-sided fashion, I think is a pretty big indictment of Dplus. I don't think that, even though Faker might not be in pristine Faker form right now, is Showmaker the guy who's arguably, he's not as good as the mids on the other top three teams of KT, Genji, or Hanwha Life right now. Is he the guy who's really going to punish Faker if Faker's still feeling the lingering effects of his injury? I don't think so. And mechanically, the other players look better now that Faker's back. I think there's just been an improved mood within the team. And T1 will still want to make Worlds, I think. I mean, we know the ceiling of this team is extremely high. They took JDG to 5 games, right, at MSI. They're one of the very few teams, I think they're the only team outside of LNG to do that. Maybe BLG did it once. Do you remember?
No, I mean, T1 did it in the upper bracket. MSI,
yeah, T1. Yeah, but I thought, I was wondering if in spring, I forget what the BLG.
I think there might have been 1-3-2, maybe. Most of them were 3-1 when it was BLG. Maybe they did 1-3-1 the first one.
Yeah. So I mean, they're taking very good teams, arguably the world's favorite in JDG, very close. So if the meta is favorable, if they have enough of a break to kind of heal up Faker, which they should, because the finals of LCK are going to be on August 20th, and it doesn't really even look like, T1 is going to make it that far in their current form. But this is all to say that now's a great time to pick T1. So we'll go ahead and put another 500. Surely the favorite will not spoil us this time, Thorin. we have just been getting wrecked by favorites. So almost 700 coming back if that goes through, and we do see the T1 victory. Now on to LCS, the least predictable of leagues. I'm curious where your head's at on some of these, because EG has looked, somewhat shaky. They did lose 3-0 to Cloud9. In spite of occasionally, especially in that third game of the series, having some pretty solid leads. They have not been able to close out games. And we do know that their persistent weakness is if Jojo Pian falls behind, that it can be somewhat of an issue. That said, APA just doesn't seem like the player to punish Jojo Pian in his current form.
Is that all that matters, though? The problem I have is I actually do think EG are frauds. Like, Team Liquid's definitely been way too unreliable to consistently hedge with. But I think Team Liquid's going to win this series, mate. I think they're the better team.
Really? Okay. I mean, I'll go with your prediction. I struggle with this because APA has been so kind of bad throughout the playoffs. He's played overly aggressive.
Your main angle you like about the EG is obviously revenge, right?
Yes.
Well, isn't this one of the worst matchups for him?
I don't know if revenge is going to get stomped quite as hard as other players might get stomped by Summit. Right.
No, but to me, it's just it offsets one of the main strengths of the team. Like, you want a team that's kind of weak at topside if you want EG to really style, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jojo Pian can. My main concern here is that Jojo Pian is just going to absolutely wreck APA.
Because of what happens.
Where does the carry potential come from? Like, it has to come from Summit at that point in time. And is Summit going to be enough ahead of Revenge to make that a reality? Is my question. I think this one's a really interesting one because the odds are close.
I mean, remember, EG has also failed in a rookie jungler as well. So you can listen. You can bet EG if you want.
They switch it up, in the middle of the series.
I don't know which one's worse there. But okay.
They do switch it up in the middle of the series. They just hot swapping players in and out. That's a good point, though. That is a good point. They do seem pretty destabilized at the jungle position. Okay. Just because the odds are better, I will put a smaller prediction on Team Liquid because I am very not confident in this series.
In general, this is also how I like to bet at the moment. Is if I think it's really like a pick me, almost 50-50, I just do the underdog. It's my style in general.
All right, 200 onto Team Liquid. For that, I think you could come down either way if you have a measure of confidence. Yeah. I do not have a measure of confidence. Both these teams have been wildly inconsistent, and that really scares me in situations like this. And the other thing that scares me, of course, is going to be Golden Guardians going up against NRG, who has now burned us 2 weeks in a row.
By the way, you've also got it wrong on the overall.
I do. I see that.
It's all good. It's all good.
I'll switch it up. So yeah, this is going to be a tough one. Because
this be Dignitas against Golden Guardians, right?
Yeah, Dignitas against Golden Guardians. Do you think that Golden Guardians, because picking them is almost just not worth it, because both the Golden Guardians and Cloud9 are under 1.3, and we have over 3 for Dignitas and NRG on these matches. So I'm tempted just to put flyers on Dignitas and NRG. I'm not going to say Dignitas was great in their series, but they do have a lot of veteran players, and Jensen and Santorin, they did step up in the series versus TSM. Do I think that they should beat Golden Guardians? No. But remember that Golden Guardians was also throwing leads, and Dignitas was catching leads that were thrown within their series versus TSM. Like, they were also down and battled back. And I do think, one thing that I perhaps have undervalued in this LCS playoff run is veterancy, Thorn. To your point about NRG and them being around for a while, and me putting a lot of faith in APA as a brand new player at the end of the split, and him completely looking like he was mentally choking within these playoffs because he was trying to be the hero, basically. Like, he had one of those moments as a new player where he felt like he had to be the guy that makes the play, and that was actually throwing the game a lot of the time. So Dignitas certainly has huge veteran status, and that could pull it out, and especially because Gory and River were really pretty underwhelming.
Oh, River got clapped, mate. It's actually sad, wasn't
it? he had like
clapped.
A pretty good Jarvan game in game 3, but other than that, I think you saw some of the limits. He picking Jarvan, I would say, is not confidence inducing in the current meta. So
like, the key thing for me is, like, look, obviously it's very unlikely that NRG wins, but their odds are fucking insane. And they've done so many upsets. It's like you may as well ride them. But the thing is, what I would maybe do is I would do it like this. I would just do, like, of the two, Dignitas beating Golden Guardians is probably more likely. Let's just do the slightly higher bet amount on that underdog one, maybe. Because the NRG one's just worth giving a cheeky flyer for the odds, I think.
I think so too. And the thing is that NRG was playing from deficits a lot of the time, right? And, Cloud9 was often the one playing from deficits as well in the early game. Against EG, they had a game or two where, especially that game 3, where they really kind of struggled to get things going. And if NRG is capable of playing well from behind, if they're not like, even if they're losing lane at times pretty badly, at least their late game shot calling and structure has been okay, right? So there's a possibility that you get the comeback here. All right, I will take your advice though. Let's do it. Okay, so we'll put 150 on the Dignitas upset. Again, these odds are absolutely huge.
I'll just throw this out there. Remember, there is the world where MNS is still a player who could definitely himself turn up and have a bad playoff game.
Yes.
If Paolo Fox can play anything like he did in that last season, they can have a chance. You can win a game or two at least. Yeah, you make it interesting.
Let's put 100. Let's put 100.
See how I do it when I do big underdog ones, because there's a logic, in my opinion, in League that's different from other games. It's not really that like you think they're actually the better team. Here's what I do when I do a big underdog in a best of X series in League, right? League has so much variance. All I ever say is this: I need to get most of the win for real. So it's a best of 5. Basically, what I have to ask is this: can NRG fuck around and win 2 games? Because if you can win 2 games, all I need to fluke for the third one. I just need a Baron Throw. I need a crazy Dragon Soul. So in League, essentially, I do think NRG can win a game. They can potentially win 2. So then all of a sudden, I might have 3 odds for a 1-game series at that point, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's not impossible. And the Golden Guardians one, I'm with you. Listen, I don't even feel bad about losing that bet. That was the team that had the best floor. I know Cloud9 was like the best team overall, but like the best floor was Golden Guardians. No one knew they could lose that BO5.
It was outrageous when you see them like 4,000 or 5,000 gold in the lead, and in a position where almost, most professional teams in the world can close from that position with reliability. Yes. And they struggled every single time that they were in that series against NRG. But it was outrageous. It's outrageous. I really don't know what to say about that series besides NA is absolutely terrible. And that's what makes predicting an LCS so challenging, is that these teams have huge variance because they're bad. Right? When you look at teams like, the teams in China and Korea, the very best teams, they're so consistent that they are going to win, almost 80% plus of their best of 3s within a given region. And oftentimes that makes it so you can't get very good odds. But if you can find the choice matches like the Telecom War that we picked out earlier this year for KT, and you can catch a team right as they're heating up, then you can get some good odds for them. But yeah, I mean, you can get better odds in LCS a lot of the time, but you're just dealing with significantly more variance. Even in a best of 5, which is unusual. Like, I understand best of 1s, but some of these NRG upsets. If you predicted NRG out there, congratulations to you.
God bless.
You got some really good. You got some really good value, and you
The
might
joke
get it
is
again.
someone should study your diary like you were Nostradamus or something and find out what were you thinking at the time.
They knew that contracts and Palafox were just going to pop off in playoffs.
By the way, there's another one. Who on bingo card had contract scores to Worlds 2023 as a starting jungler? Who had that on there? I don't believe anyone. Joke is even fucking contracts did he? Come on. Let's be real. Even he looked shocked. Like, how did I get it? What the hell? What's going on?
All right, guys. We'll be rolling through playoffs this week again. Look out on Twitter, especially Esportsbet on our Twitters for predictions for the matches. And as LCK continues to unfold, we may put some additional bets up there for you guys. So we'll be back next week to discuss the final weekends of LCS and LCK. We'll see you then.